Hello friends, welcome to this video. Today we have part 10 of the Tribe Gen series. Now, if you're wondering what the Tribe Gen series is, there is a playlist of videos on it, but since this video kind of ties together many threads of the story, I'll do a little bit of a recap for us. So, this series centers on three tribes: the GeierWings, the ScorchWings, and the GeierWings. At this point in the story, the GeierWings have invaded the ScorchWings desert in order to take their metal, which GeierWings need for their bones, their teeth, their claws, and especially their eggshells. The ScorchWings are fighting back with guerrilla tactics, but as a very peaceful tribe, it's pretty hard to fight against the GeierWings, who are a very battle-oriented tribe. In the meantime, the Tidewings, who have a very hierarchical structure to their society, they're having kind of a rough time where the lower classes are very much looked down upon and subjugated and oppressed, and the time has really come for an uprising. This part of the story starts with the character Nyx, who has a video on her, but again, to recap a little bit, Nyx was the GeierWing that was born with this amazing metal sensing ability, and she's the one who found the metal reserves in the desert and essentially started the war because, she found that there was metal there. Now, in her hometown, she's lauded as a hero, right? And the queen has taken her to the battlefront to help boost morale for the warriors there, because it's like, hey, here's this hero that made it possible for us to get the medal. So she's showing Nyx to the warriors to make them more motivated and improve morale. And she's also showing Nyx the fruits of her labor, right? Like, hey, you made this possible, but you made this war possible, right? It's meant to be celebratory, but Nyx is kind of a sensitive dragon, and she sees the suffering that's happening on both sides. There are imprisoned ScorchWings and injured GeierWings, and she breaks. This is not what she wanted for herself. She doesn't feel like a hero, she feels like a villain, and this is all her fault. So she runs, and she ends up with some Tidewing pirates. Long story short, and actually this might be a part of the story that it would be fun to go into detail on in another video potentially, but long story short, in exchange for helping with the Tidewing rebellion, Nyx gets the pirates to help the ScorchWings fight because she can't bear the thought that she has caused the destruction of an entire tribe, and so she desperately needs this to stop. So essentially, that's an overview of what's happened leading up to this battle. So now, to set up the battle, Vanna has heard that the ScorchWings are fighting back harder and harder with guerrilla warfare. And this is upsetting, obviously, because if the ScorchWings fight back, well, there goes their easy access to metal, which they need. And Mooney, aka Selenite, but it's just fun to call him Mooney. Mooney, her mate and advisor, this kind of sends him into villain mode, right? He's like, we can't let this happen. For the safety of our children, we need to crush them, right? So he says that as the ScorchWings gain experience in fighting back, this struggle is only going to get worse and worse. So they need to make an example of these ScorchWing rebels now before they can gather strength. So the GeierWings go in force to the desert. Almost every warrior is there. They bring their entire army, essentially. And of course, they send terms. So they send a messenger to Queen Mirage, and they are essentially saying, stand down or we'll attack your main oasis. Now, as this conflict has been going on, the ScorchWing tribe is usually spread out over the entire desert, with many families rotating over the course of several oases, right? So, but since the GeierWing threat is there, a lot of the families have converged on the main oasis. It's like they're in shelter in the main oasis. So if the GeierWings were to attack the main oasis, that would be really bad. All of the women and children and old people are there. Not that, women can't fight, but female female dragons. Anyway, essentially, I'm just trying to say that, like, the more vulnerable dragons are all, like, stashed at the main oasis, trying to keep them safe. So, up until this point, Queen Mirage hasn't really approved of the guerrilla tactics. She's not the person who sanctioned these anyway. This was a Scorchwing called Cricket, deciding to take matters into his own hands. But things are getting serious now. So she takes Cricket aside and they have a conversation. And they decide that they have to fight for their last oasis. And the only way they can survive is to stand together and stand up for themselves. So they respond. Cricket himself faces Queen Vanna and Selenite and delivers the news that the ScorchWings, decline this agreement. And this is one of those scenes that I really see in my head. So Cricket, this small ScorchWing, is in front of these two, large, incredible warriors. And I can see in my head, like, Vanna's face goes cold and Selenite's is unreadable. Because Vanna, like, she didn't really want this to happen. She's just scared for the safety of her children, because she is with child, so she needs metal to make the eggshells, right? So her face goes cold because she's shutting down her emotions. She really doesn't want this battle to happen, but this is what she thinks she has to do for her children to survive. So she just looks Cricket in the eye and says, "Prepare for battle then." So the battle is set to begin at dawn, which, takes away the ScorchWings' advantage from their night vision. So, we start out with the odds very much not in their favor because of that. Also, usually they're sleeping during the day, so yeah, we're off to a great start. The ScorchWings, they know it's a long shot. They don't know that help is coming, so this is just pure courage on their part. Predictably, it goes bad at first. The GeierWings are bigger and trained from a young age to fight. Vanna takes to the field with cold precision, but her heart is just shattering into a million pieces as she realizes she's not fighting just adult ScorchWings. She's fighting dragonettes and older dragons. Almost the entire tribe is there because they know they don't stand a chance if they don't use everybody. Even so, the battle is not going well for them. But just as it seems like the ScorchWing lines will break, there's a flash of blue over the dunes. The pirates slam into the GeierWing army from the rear, and there's chaos as the GeierWings don't know what's happening. Vanna turns when she hears fighting from behind her, and a Tidewing, Typhoon, actually just slams into her, and they smash to the ground. And there on the ground, there's another GeierWing fighting Cricket. The other GeierWing is dazed as they run right into him, and he breaks away. And now Typhoon and Vanna are fighting each other over Cricket's head. And this is the scene that I drew. Now, in my opinion, composition is not my strong suit. This is actually my first drawing that has had 3 dragons and a background in it, like an actual scene. So I tried really, really hard, and I know it needs some work, but I'm really proud of how it turned out. But anyway, so this is Typhoon and Vanna and Cricket. So again, this battle is in the desert. So sand is flying everywhere. The GeierWings are suddenly on their back foot. Selenite just looks up from the battle and realizes that, like, they're losing. How could they be losing? Where did these blue dragons come from? And he breaks down. He has been driven, right, by this need. Like, I need to do whatever I can to give my children the best life that they possibly can. And if that means that we have to kill all the ScorchWings, then that's going to happen. And, like, suddenly right now, he is wondering for the first time, did I make the wrong decisions? Am I wrong here? And I also kind of envision him seeing, like, Vanna kind of losing a fight from across the battlefield, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, I killed her. Like, if she dies, it's 100% my fault. And so he is just breaking. But he can't think on this for long. So, because, like a Tidewing slams into him, he's in a battle. But this is kind of like the first moment where he stops and like contemplates his actions. And like I don't think in cinematic shots very often. Like scenes play in my head like a movie, but I just am literally thinking of a movie shot where we're like zoomed out on the battle and then we like rush in on Selenite's face and it's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I don't know. If I could make this into like an animation, I would, but I have zero animation skills. So there you go. If like anyone's out there who wants to make this into an animation, you totally can. Just gonna put that out there. Anyway, back to the battle. Vanna gets pinned by Typhoon, and everything slows as the GeierWings realize their queen is down and they're losing. Some of her countrymen try to fly to her rescue, but she snarls, no. And at the same time, the ScorchWing queen, Mirage, lands next to Cricket and just throws her wing over him, like throwing her arm out in front of somebody, protecting him. And she tells her people to stop. So everything is stopped. The dragons are just standing there or hovering, and they're just watching these queens. And Nyx just races up to them and throws herself to the ground and begs them to stop the fighting. Now, she knows Typhoon, right? Because she's been with her for the past several weeks. So she's begging Typhoon, like, Typhoon, please get off of her. And Typhoon, like, rolls her eyes, but then she steps off and shakes the sand from her scales. And Vanna's eyes go, like, huge when she sees Nyx, her metal sensor, talking to the enemy. And she's like, what is going on? She thought that Nyx was taken by the ScorchWings, but as soon as the weight comes off of her, Vanna leaps to her feet in a defensive position, feathers bristling, and she's like, Nyx, what are you doing? And Nyx is like, I'm so sorry, Your Majesty, but we need to stop this. And the ScorchWing Queen steps in and is all like, we don't want to fight anymore. And Vanna looks at them, and after a really long pause, she signals to her people to stop and just land and form up behind her. As soon as the GeierWings kind of like relax from their fighting stances and it's obvious that they're not going to fight anymore, the ScorchWings just cheer, and Vanna and Selenite go with the ScorchWings and tell the others to make camp. So now the battle is over, right? And the queens are making the treaty. And of course, Selenite is there because he's Vanna's advisor as well as her mate. And now that the battle's over, he has more time to think and think and think. So as this is happening, Selenite is getting more and more like panicky and agitated, and he sees the wounds on his mate and he feels like he can't breathe, and he feels like everyone is watching him and glaring at him, and he faints because his mind can't take it anymore, so he passes out. Also, he's having a panic attack, so that's why he passes out. So Selenite wakes up in the ScorchWing infirmary, and the ScorchWings, like, they don't know that he's the reason that this all happened in the first place. But, the ScorchWings are very kind people, and so they're nice to him. And he starts crying because he realizes that they're the kind of people that would have helped the GeierWings if they had just asked. And so he started this war for no reason. So I feel like most of the story arcs are kind of coming to a close with this battle, but Selenite is kind of going through even more. This is like the beginning of his guilt arc, right? So his story probably continues more, but I haven't thought too much about it. I just know that he, realizes what he's done, and he apologizes to Vanna, and he asks to atone by being an ambassador to the ScorchWings. And in this moment, Vanna suddenly realizes what's happened. She sees Mooney as he used to be, and she recognizes how more terrible he's been. She realizes how much he's been manipulating her and controlling her and guilt tripping her. and she feels betrayed and angry and sad. And so she's like, yeah, you live with the ScorchWings. So, yeah, that's kind of like the last thing that I know for sure happens with Mooney. But one thing that I've been like toying with is maybe he eventually becomes friends with Cricket, and then one day he breaks down and he's like, I did this to you. I'm so sorry. And Cricket is shocked because like none of the Scorchwings know that like whose idea this war was. But in the end, I mean, he's probably mad at him for a while, but then in the end he's like, Mooney, it's over. I don't know why, but in my head, I think that this battle comes before the Tidewing Rebellion. So maybe I should make that my next video. But this to me is kind of like the finale of the Scorchwing GeierWing battle and their like conflict essentially. As always though, I'm 100% open to your guys' ideas. My plan for now is I should probably do the Tidewing battle and talk about that, right? And then after that, I'm kind of wondering, and after that, you know, the story is kind of in the hands of the RP, which would be, you know, not about the characters that I've made, but about people's own characters because, you know, we're almost done with the area for the role play. And I really want it to open soon because, like, there you go. Now you guys know the story. But yeah, so I'm just wondering if you guys want more stories about like Nyx, Cricket, Vanna, Mooney, like all those people, or should I make some new stories? I mean, I'm like a writer at heart, so I'm gonna be making new stories anyway. But if you guys want to give me suggestions or anything like make new tribes, keep these tribes, make a prequel, like all that type of stuff, let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what you think of this art and the story. And totally, like, if you have your own ideas for like specific things that are happening in the battle, like maybe Mooney faces Cricket for an instant, you know, like totally put those down below as well. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed it. This was one of the most exciting parts of the story that we got to do, I think. So this has been pretty fun for me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.